Our brains are the ultimate creation station. However, that being said, they're not always very reliable, nor accurate, nor beneficial. I mean, ultimately, our brains are designed to keep us alive. They don't really give a shit whether or not we're happy or, anyways, fulfilled. And consequently, they construct stories that are geared towards survival as opposed towards the best case scenario. And an awful lot of what is constructed is based on our past experience, based on our expectations, based on any trauma that we may have experienced in our lives, and based on any rules that we have about the world. We all have this worldview that oftentimes we're not even aware of, and it's kind of an assumption for how things work. And we oftentimes project these rules and these views onto our relationships, onto our day to day situations, and they can really, really narrow our perspective. They can really impact on the way in which we see reality, and can really, I suppose, mutate things so that we're not really perceiving things as we ought to. We're perceiving things the way that we are. And it's so important that we have some sort of process of self inquiry or a practice of self awareness going on in order to be able to transcend that tendency of our minds to create the worst case scenario and to keep us in quite a negative place. Now, that being said, I'm not advising that you put a positive outlook on everything, because ultimately that's not realistic either. But it's just being very aware of the tendency of the mind to create a story based on your emotional experience. I mean, when we feel something, it is usually very somatic, it's very physiological, and it can be very visceral, particularly if it's a feeling of threat. If we feel that we're inadequate, if we feel embarrassed or shamed, if we feel angry, if we feel sad, if we feel any type of loss, those feelings can be really, really uncomfortable to sit with. And consequently, our mind creates this story that will match how we're feeling, and that isn't always reflective of reality or what's going on in life. And it's recognizing that we're always going to want to escape those feelings as well. So whilst our brain creates the problem, it also tries to solve the problem. And oftentimes the way in which it solves the problem is by avoiding it, or by soothing it, or by numbing it, or by escaping whatever emotion it is that we're feeling at the time. And this isn't beneficial to us, because generally the more that we run from our emotions, the more unwilling we are to sit with them and to tolerate them, the more they manifest, the stronger and more intense they become. And it's recognizing as well that there's certain things in life that are always going to trigger us that little bit more than others, particularly if we have trauma in our past. We're going to be more sensitive in certain situations. Just say, for example, our relationships. And I mean, relationships are the ultimate trigger for anyone at the best of times. But if you have past experiences which were traumatizing for you, then you're going to find it very difficult to face into feelings of uncertainty, or insecurity, or any sort of doubt or pain. They're going to feel like hell. But it's recognizing that they can't actually hurt you, and the more you are willing to accept your present truth, to be very mindful and to be very where you are, the less likely you are to suffer in the long run. And that is something that really a lot of people struggle with. They feel like, okay, well, if I can just, obsessively worry about something else, or if I can obsessively focus on my weight or what I look like, or if I can just numb out on Instagram, or if I can just drink myself stupid, or if I can just stuff my face with sugar, or, exercise for 3 hours, then I don't have to feel like this, then I don't have to experience it. And you can spend a lifetime running from your own internal experience, from what is true for you. And I mean, it is such a great loss, because oftentimes when we do allow ourselves to surrender to our emotional experience without any of the stories that we construct around it, then there's almost a relief in it. I mean, sometimes I can be so busy trying to fight sadness with anger and resentment and self righteousness and distraction, and I'm a great one for kind of immersing myself completely in anything intellectual. I'm listening to, all of the spiritual podcasts, and I'm reading all about spiritual concepts or psychological concepts or whatever it is that I'm engaging with, but avoiding having to deal with the fact that I'm sad about something, or that I'm just really disappointed, or that I feel rejected. And then when I actually recognize that and I say, okay, do you know what? I'm going to sit with this for a few minutes and just exist with it. It's a relief. It's actually a relief to be like, I am so sad in my body and in my heart right at this very moment, but I'm going to honor that and I'm going to be with it. And it's that kind of inner knowing, it's that inner sense of I can handle this, I'm okay with this, and I can get through this, that releases the pain of the actual emotion, and that allows us to move beyond it as a stronger person, a more resilient person. And it's continuously bringing yourself back to that question, okay, what am I not willing to feel? And what would it feel like if I just sat with it just for a few moments? And so much of my life has been fighting the reality of who I am. I have gone to unbelievable lengths to kind of avoid looking in the mirror and looking inside and being like, okay, this is who I am, and I have all of these flaws and I have all of these idiosyncrasies and I'm as odd as fuck, but I'm okay with that. I can sit with that, and as long as I can sit with it, other people become okay with it. And the more that you can get out of your own head and get out of your own ego, the more purposeful a life you can live. I mean, ultimately, it's all about finding a way to serve others. It's all about learning to move beyond your own ego, move beyond kind of having to deny the parts of yourself that you feel ashamed about or that you're not so sure of, and finding compassion for them all and understanding for them all, and showing up for yourself as who you are, as your authentic self, as opposed to just the parts of yourself that you deem acceptable to others. And it's recognizing when you withdraw from conflict in your life, or recognizing when you're being overly aggressive, or recognizing when you're telling yourself a story that is actually compounding your pain as opposed to easing it in any way. And it's setting an intention to not be afraid to step inside, to practice your self inquiry, to bring yourself to your meditative cushion and ask yourself the difficult questions and not necessarily have the answers, just be open to not knowing. And intention is so important, because again, a day without intention is just a day that spans out, and kind of we never really get anywhere. We never kind of set ourselves the task of self-awareness and of finding acceptance and of finding out what it is that we want our lives to stand for. And I suppose this is why sometimes I feel kind of more practical based solutions like CBT aren't really all that helpful, because we need to go deeper than our thoughts. We need to go to our emotions. We need to be able to listen to them without them completely drowning or suffocating us. We need to be able to feel them and honor them and experience them and ask what it is that they're telling us. Ask ourselves what's coming up for us, as opposed to wanting to escape them or wanting to intellectualize everything, because ultimately our feelings are always going to be there. They're part and part of our tapestry, but they're the more colourful part of our tapestry. And the more we're willing to engage with them, the more we're willing to engage with the reality of our life, as opposed to assuming that, if we put a positive thought on everything, it's going to be a panacea for our lives. Or, the more we're willing to sit in the mud and be where we are, the more likely we are to feel fully alive, to feel revitalized, and to move beyond our pain, and to be more realistic in our thinking, and be able to show up for our lives and show up for other people with a love and a tenderness and a humility and grace. I hope everyone is having an amazing day. Talk to you again soon.